Socal Connected is made possible through the generous support of the Amundsen Foundation, serving the Los Angeles community since 1952.
On tonight's Socal Connected.
I saw the headline and I said to myself, they finally caught Rick Singer.
New internal emails from the University of Southern California show that money talks.
You would not believe how many parents here that said, I don't have that kind of connection, my kid's never gonna get in that school.
You can't interject fairness into a system that's set up from the beginning to not be fair.
I feel really scared. They want that 4.3 and it seems almost impossible.
I have to get A's, so when I get a B+, it's like the end of the world.
It seems like every single day, someone has a mental breakdown.
This is stuff that keeps me up at night.
Federal prosecutors call this the biggest case of college admissions fraud that they've ever handled. And of those 50 people...
Actress Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman are two of the dozens of wealthy parents accused in the alleged scheme that lasted nearly 1 decade.
Now, since that scandal broke, every university mentioned in the indictment has been in damage control.
Especially USC, which has been implicated heavily in the scheme.
USC is one of 8 universities implicated in the national college admissions scandal. 48 hours before our scheduled interview with the Dean of Admissions, the school canceled with no explanation. A few days later, this happened.
The college admissions scandal widening as new internal emails from the University of Southern California show that money talks, frankly. Public documents revealing messages.
Internal records show the staff flagging children of potential donors and influential families as VIPs in the admissions process. $1 million pledge, Sony Pictures. Father is a surgeon. Potential donors, twins. Granddaughter needs good fall term. Notes on a spreadsheet, now evidence in a criminal case. Private colleges have been giving preferential treatment to children of the elite for generations.
It really does feel like, in some ways, the system is wrong.
That's so insane that if you are born into privilege, that you can pretty much have your way set for life.
It's 100% pay to play.
Getting into college has become a billion-dollar business. Boot camps, education consultants, national conventions, an entire industry has been built to serve, and some critics say exploit the pressure parents and kids feel to get into the right school.
A lot of people are hiring private counselors.
Every student in Irvine has been taking SAT classes.
All my friends have money, and so they all have like these super expensive SAT and ACT coaches. Like I remember like one of my friends was like talking about how like one of them is like $500 a session.
And a generation of high schoolers is paying the price.
In my job, I feel like we're at a breaking point every year. I really don't exaggerate when I say this is stuff that keeps me up at night. I'm in charge of 98 kids' dreams and hopes and futures in a very real way.
Hector Martinez is the Dean of Guidance at Webb Schools, a private boarding school community in Claremont. His students are all gunning for top schools.
I went to high school in the 80s. Nobody applied to 20 colleges in the 80s. You applied to a state school, maybe a private school, maybe the place that, a relative told you would be good for you, and that was pretty much it.
It's a lot harder to get into college than it used to be. There are more kids applying than ever before.
It seems every 10 years there's been a doubling of applications, so these numbers have gone up. And I think the frustration comes because the number of spaces in the freshman class have really not much changed.
In 2008, UCLA had about 55,000 applicants for its freshman class. A decade later, more than 113,000 applications for about the same number of spots. It's now the most applied to college in the country. And because of this rise in applications, the rates of acceptance to top colleges are dropping everywhere.
There's still a lot of people that think, oh, well, if things don't work out, you can go to USC, until they figure out USC has an 11% admit rate, and they're denying legacy cases, let alone everybody else.
In 1980, USC accepted nearly 70% of applicants. That means now it's almost 6 times harder to get in.
There's times when I'm talking to our admissions people at Harvard or at Stanford, and I say, is this the year you guys are so selective and so incredible that you're not going to take anybody? Like, you just have a 0 acceptance rate. Short of becoming famous, I don't know what else my students can do.
It's not just the Ivy League. Even Cal State LA is more competitive now. 10 years ago, the school let in 76% of applicants. Now, it's dropped to 41%. Schools like to keep their numbers low. The fewer students colleges accept, the higher they rise in the rankings. That means more prestige, better professors, bigger endowments, and more money. And because getting into college is so hard, the competition is on to be the perfect student.
I have a 4.7 GPA, but it is still definitely a worry to me that it's not high enough, or that, there are other people who have equally as high GPAs.
This is my first time ever having a B+ in high school, which when I say that or people find out, they're always like, stop, like that's not bad. But I feel like for me, it's like, I have to get A's, so when I get a B+, it's like the end of the world.
My GPA is 4.0, which, for a lot of people, they would envy that. But at the same time, I wish that I had, a 4.6 and a 4.5, because that's what a lot of these kids are getting. And part of the stress also is seeing seniors last year who had a 4.6 get denied from UCLA and get denied from Stanford. And it's like, well, what else do you want from me?
And the grades are just the bare minimum. Applicants are expected to have an impressive roster of extracurriculars, volunteer work, and a backstory that sets them apart from everyone else.
I've just done school tennis. I'm on the student council. I'll do the ambassador. I just joined different clubs. It's a lot. Only so many hours in a day.
And then there are the test scores.
I just took the SAT, and it was definitely a huge, I didn't get the score that I wanted, and I kind of broke down a bit. I definitely went down this whole, I started crying and breaking down because I felt that I didn't make my parents proud.
So what are people saying you need to get into college?
1,500 and above. It's kind of universal that 1,500 mark is that means success to people that quantify success.
One of my parents said something about the ACT, and I don't know why. I was just oh, okay. And then I went back into my room, and then I started thinking about the ACT, and I started just bawling, crying, heavily crying. I cried a lot in advance.
Dwight Smith has been a counselor at Beckman High School in Irvine for 10 years. The public school is a mix of races and income levels. The students are more stressed out than ever.
I've seen it get worse over the years because there's no way it can get better. So I've been working now in education for about 26 years, and one of the hardest things for me to deal with every year is when students come and essentially fall apart in my office because of their 4.7, 4.6 GPA did not get them into the college that they wanted to get into. 40% of our students have a 4.0 and above. Last year, I had my very first 5.0 student. I have some students taking 7 APs. That's 7 college classes at once. So we've realized that we have to put a limit on them. So we're going to limit the seniors to about 4 now.
And did you get pushback on that from students?
Oh, we got pushback from parents, way more than students. You guys are really under a lot of stress about being chosen and making the right choice, right? I mean, because you think if I make the wrong choice right now, what's going to happen?
I think it's kind of funny how we're told, choose the path and the career that you want to do and choose it now, but at the same time, we don't get a lot of say in the other stuff and other aspects of our life, so it's kind of stressful in that sense, to where we're expected to be able to know everything that we want to do and know our life ahead of us.
Many, many people get a degree that they do not work in because they
A lot of Smith's students worry they won't get in anywhere. So they apply to even more schools to try to increase their chances.
I literally have some students who are applying 25, 30 schools because they are scared that they're not going to get in. They're really trying to hedge their bet. as much as possible. I think it's ridiculous.
When you write in your essays, you should talk about what you want to do. And if they don't want you for who you are, then you don't want to be there anyway.
Linda McGee is the college counselor at Downtown Magnets High School, a public school with about 1,000 students.
We're 96 to 97% students of color, mostly first generation. So my students don't really feel entitled, and sometimes they don't give themselves the credit they should. So I need to be their cheerleader and let them know that they are worthy of whatever anyone else can get. So the most important thing that you can do is be the best student that you can be. You're at places where people go to med school all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything I'm stressing about when it comes to college.
We have now a full-time psychiatric social worker. She's busy all day long because the level of stress, I mean, being in this school for so long, I've watched it just explode. They're taking on so much. They're taking all these APs and all these honors. They're also involved in every club. They're president of this and president of that, and they do all this community service, and then they might have a job also. And sometimes they just hit a wall.
The stress is so extreme that students in high-achieving schools have been added to the list of at-risk groups by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, experiencing rates of depression and anxiety that are much higher than the national norms.
They're exhausted, they're tired, they're tapped out. And it doesn't take much more for someone to say or do for them to fall apart.
I've been so desensitized to the phrase mental breakdown because it seems like every single day someone has a mental breakdown.
They use it loosely.
Like in the middle of class, we'll just be learning something and someone just like slams their head on a table and they'll just like stay there because like they just can't handle it.
My grades started going down a little bit. I'm getting emotional a little bit, but I was like crying and I kept telling my dad that I'm really mad right now. I can't like go to school tomorrow because I feel so much pressure in me and I don't want to like fail even more. And there's so much like things that go into it, and it's like I'm not meant to deal with this stuff yet because I'm still like a high schooler, but I am dealing with it.
In 2018, Patrick Turner was a junior at one of the most competitive high schools in Orange County. In his suicide note, the 16-year-old wrote, "You're looked at as a loser. If you don't go to college or if you get a certain GPA or test score, so much pressure is placed on students to do well that I couldn't do it anymore."
This is the great equalizer stress. It's every race, it's every creed, it's every religion, it's every low, middle, and upper income. It's the one thing they all have in common. It's like the wealthy kids are saying, I don't have any tragedies to write about. And the low income kids are saying, I never did a service trip to China. I don't know what to write about. So they both have their problems. If you were ever under the illusion that college is a separate entity from business and money making, all you have to do is go to a national conference.
The National Association for College Admission Counseling, NACAC for short, hosts a conference every year for high school counselors around the country. It's a showcase for a billion-dollar industry formed around college prep. It has its own specialties and subspecialties.
So test preparation itself has become its own small subset with, thousands of providers around the world. Those that are specializing in-person work, classroom work, private online tutoring, self-guided videos, Khan Academy, all those things that you can imagine.
They have a huge room of vendors of every sort, very expensive systems, big booths, expensive giveaways, and it's thriving, it's booming.
But the main draw for high school counselors is the networking.
Imagine, I guess, either Las Vegas or New Orleans on steroids. It's food and drink, and I mean, it's just it's a big party.
But not all counselors get to go to the conference or the parties.
NACAC is where you really see the disparities and they just hit you in the face. I mean, this is where you see the haves and the have-nots.
Flights, lodging, tickets, the costs add up. And most private schools foot the bill.
I need to know those colleges really, really well, and I need to know those admissions people really, really well, and they need to know us.
But a lot of public school counselors are on their own. McGee says she was one of only a few Los Angeles Unified School District counselors that attended the event this year.
I do whatever I can to get there every year. A lot of times I've just paid my own way. This year, I have a lot of expenses with my son going to college, and I didn't have the money.
She started a GoFundMe page, and many of her former students donated.
And within less than a week, they funded me. I don't even want to talk about it right now. It's making me emotional.
LAUSD doesn't require schools to have a counselor solely devoted to college admissions.
At this school, my position is not paid for by the district. It was a principal choice, a school choice. Some institutions, they've chosen other things to be a priority, and they're just supposed to make do.
Student counselor ratios in public high schools around the country have been steadily declining for decades due to population increases and budget cuts. According to a recent UCLA study, over 50% of counselors at LAUSD schools say they didn't have enough time to provide students with the assistance they needed. So a growing number of parents are turning to the private sector.
You go to Los Angeles and your child attends an independent school, chances are pretty good you probably also hired a private counselor to help you through the process, whether you need one or not.
They're called independent educational consultants. Rick Singer was one. He was also the mastermind of the college admission scandal.
I said to myself, they finally caught Rick Singer.
According to court documents, Singer was the CEO of a college prep company in California.
He's a total outlier. I'm surprised he wasn't caught sooner.
Patty Dimoff is the owner of College Circuit. She's one of the most established consultants in LA.
32 years ago, when we first started, there were maybe 10 of us in Los Angeles. And over the years, it has really just exploded.
In just 15 years, the number of independent counselors has increased by 400%. Dimoff does everything a high school counselor does, but with private clients. She has just 12 to 15 seniors, and she's on call 24 hours a day to answer their questions. Some call it concierge counseling.
With some of our students, quite honestly, it never ends. I have many students who I talk to through college and after college about all different kinds of things.
And demand for her services is high.
This year, I'm booked 3 years in advance.
Dimoff declined to tell us her prices, but her packages are under $10,000. Some independent consultants have become notorious for their high prices.
Some very wealthy families feel that if they're not paying a lot, they're not getting the best service. So they have to bump their prices up for them.
Alan Coe is a Bay Area-based consultant.
Our clients are very wealthy, very powerful. Our most common package is about $50,000. Our most expensive package is $350,000. And then there are some special cases for which we're charging $1 million, sometimes even more.
I don't really think independent counselors have contributed to the application frenzy and the concern. I think that they may be capitalizing on it because it is a good opportunity for them by telling people, oh, working with me will help alleviate your stress and fear because I have the plan. Of course, by having the plan, that means you have to pay me regularly.
And the problem is, there's no one regulating the industry.
There's no licensing, there's no special degree you have to have. There are people that will pay you $20,000 because they think you know something. Your kid got into Harvard, so you must know the secret. Well, those people don't know. They don't have a secret. There is no secret.
Parents don't even know to ask. They're just hiring someone who someone told them was a good person. It's very much the Wild West. Just put your star on your chest and go out there.
But the parents are still willing to pay. Families spent a total estimated $775 million on independent educational consultants. And it's not just the 1%. Nearly half are middle class, and a quarter are working class, according to an industry trade association.
Is there something that you want to start with? Did you want to start by talking about you? Did you want me to start by just looking at your Common App? Like what?
I guess we should start with the resume.
Okay.
Brooke Hansen used to work in the entertainment industry, but left when she realized she could make a lot more as a tutor.
I'm typically working one-on-one with students anywhere from like 10 to 30 hours a week, depending on the season and how busy I am.
The thing about stories like this, when you've got a story that's like, I was on this vacation, I saw this happen, what I want to learn more about is more about you.
She now charges $250 an hour for helping with college essays. And her YouTube channel has over 100,000 subscribers.
You want to stand out, you want to be interesting. Do you know how many essays the people who work at these colleges have to read?
Some people feel like this is the black sheep of the education market or whatever it is, but at the same time, when you're in people's lives and you see a difference that you can make with them, that there is something positive there and you feel like you're filling a gap. And there's some value to that.
Another private counselor, Danny Ruderman, says he works with students on a sliding scale, but he wouldn't give us any numbers.
I have kids in Santa Monica High and Venice High. I have kids at Brentwood, Harvard Westlake. I also have kids in Switzerland, South Africa, New York, Louisiana.
He's even got one who's a celebrity.
Evan called me when he was a senior and said, I don't want to apply to Stanford. And I said, no, you're applying anyway.
The Evan he's referring to is Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat, who became the youngest billionaire in the world in 2015.
Lo and behold, he got into Stanford. So in a very non-egotistical way, if it weren't for me, there'd be no Snapchat.
A major criticism of independent counselors is that they're giving children of the wealthy a leg up in a system that's already stacked in their favor.
It is definitely slanted. Most of my students would have an advantage, even if they didn't see me.
For a wealthy white male, the world is not going to change whether they go to Harvard or not. It definitely matters if you're low income. For a black male who wants to go to an Ivy League, their life is going to change, and they will be treated differently because of it.
All three counselors agree that it's an unfair playing field, and they do some pro bono work on the side.
It's better than nothing, but does it patch all the places where the public schools are not able to have that hands-on help? Well, no. No, it's not. You can't interject fairness into a system that's set up from the beginning to not be fair.
Low-income students make up just 3% of those who attend America's most selective colleges, partially because they can't afford the personalized help that private consultants provide.
If it's not really coming from you, I feel like it is an unfair advantage when you have someone that's already went through the college process. I kind of feel like that is an unfair advantage that certain people have. And I mean, I don't have that advantage.
How fair is that? Right? So how do you even explain that fairness? You don't. You're just literally left dumbfounded.
Yet, in spite of the odds, a lot of students and parents still want access to the top.
There's this belief that if you don't get into these 25 schools, or maybe even 50, then you're doomed and your diploma is worth nothing.
My parents' standards are to get into a good college. So we're talking UC or private, period. But any other colleges like Cal State's, it's kind of like you can apply, but I want better for you.
I know some parents who, literally want their kids to go into Harvard so they can tell their friends that their kid got into Harvard.
I'm just telling you, I went to Cal State Fullerton. I've had parents straight tell me in my office that their kid will never go to a Cal State. And I'm like, well, and I show them my degree and it doesn't faze them. It's a disdain.
On May 1st each year, high schools around the country have a tradition. Students reveal the college they've chosen. Everyone finds out who got in and who didn't.
We have a college day where everybody comes in decked out in the gear that they're committed to, the school that they're committed to. And our school puts out a big map and they have the pinpoints of where everybody's going. And all you need to do is take a look at that map to find out where someone's going to college. They say that it's like one of the worst days of their high school experience.
There's even a hashtag for it, Decision Day.
Oh, you mean the day of tears? By the time lunch comes around, you'll start getting a lot of criers, a lot of people who, my friend got in, I didn't, I'm a loser.
And in the age of social media, your choice instantly becomes public information.
If you want to like go check what university someone's going to, you just have to click on the profile and it would say some college 22 or some college 23.
Social media, the kids are always FOMOing, right? The fear of missing out. They're always looking out to see that somebody's life is better than their own. It's a constant keeping up with their Joneses. It's constant comparison.
That's why asking students to apply to lesser-known schools is easier said than done. At downtown Magnets High School, the college information sessions for big-name schools like Princeton or USC have 40 or 50 sign-ups, but the sheet for Center College in Kentucky is nearly empty.
This is a school that I love. And they have a full ride scholarship that's huge. I have a student there on it right now. And I need to find students adventurous enough to go to Kentucky. My big job is to try to help them understand that there are more than 25 colleges in this country. You will get into college. It's a hard sell, though. I have to do it over and over again.
Patrick Turner's parents started a scholarship in their son's name. It's only for kids going to trade school or community college. It was important to them to spread the message that going to an elite college isn't the only path out there, and your life is more important than the name of your school.
I think students have mistakenly confused rankings for quality. We got to be careful when we do that with education.
It's expected that I will go to college, and I think I've never even thought of other options. And I think it's kind of scary to think that that this might affect the rest of my life.
Like, why can't I just be a kid and just enjoy like my high school experience without having like the pressures of college weighing down on me?
Socal Connected is made possible through the generous support of the Amundsen Foundation, serving the Los Angeles community since 1952.